Hello, and thank you for joining the Israel Debrief. I'm Lital Shemesh, broadcasting to you from Israel. Bar-Yoshafat is a former deputy director of the Kohelet Policy Forum. He is an international lecturer, author, and expert in public diplomacy, and an attorney by training. Since October 7th, Ran has served as an officer in a combat special forces in the Army Reserves and has spent 400 days fighting in Gaza, Lebanon, Judea and Samaria, and Syria. Ran, hello, thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
First of all, we salute you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for spending hundreds of days throughout these past 2.5 years as a reservist. And I would like to start by asking you, what do you take with you from October 7th?
It's a very deep question. So I got married on the 4th day of the war, and I became a father during the war. So for me, the main issue of this war is the continuation of the Jewish people, or survival. The fact that we were able to basically take on the severest attack that we've had since the Holocaust, but we prevailed. And that's what I'm taking from it.
Yeah, and not only that, you went on uniform, you put on your uniform, you joined your unit, and you had to, communicate to your new wife from Gaza, basically.
Yeah, so on October 7th, I already went to the south. On Motzei Shabbos, the end of Shabbat, I gave her a call and I said, what are we going to do? We're planning to marry on October 11th. And I asked her, are we going to continue with the wedding or postponed? The woman is the one that usually makes the decision in these events. And she said, we're going to continue with the wedding. So on the 4th day of the war, I left my army base. We got married in a very small charity hall. And the next day I went back to war. And my wife is a new immigrant. She's an Ola Chadasha. And our wedding was not what we have planned. It wasn't the known Israeli rave wedding parties. My firstborn was born when I was in Gaza again in the Netzarim corridor. I left my car at the border, and when my wife told me that she's starting to feel contractions, there was a special convoy getting me outside of Gaza, so I was able to make it to the birth. So yeah, that's the biggest sacrifice at the end of the day.
Wow, and you've been dedicating so many years of your life to speak for the state of Israel, to basically speak the truth, about what is happening here. And then on October 7th, I think in a way we've seen how extreme is the propaganda against Israel, because you're saying to yourself, we've experienced such a dramatic, grotesque event, and yet people are still spreading lies about what is happening in Israel. How do you see the outcome of that?
So it's amazing. After my first round in Gaza, I actually went on a speaking tour. I went on 4 different speaking tours since the war began. After each round, I usually went for about a month to speak in different college campuses. My first round, I was canceled at Berkeley. Now, for those who do not know, Berkeley is where the free speech movement started in the 60s.
Yeah, very anti-Israel
So it's a very anti-Israel climate for many, many years, but this was different. We've had a common past with Israel advocacy. This was very, very different. There was a riot of about 300 quote-unquote protesters who broke the glass of the building I was supposed to speak at. They choked a Jewish student who came to listen to me. I'm going to assume she's pro-Israel, but I've never met her. She was just willing to listen to an Israeli speaking from his experience about the war. They choked her until she was bleeding from her neck. They broke the wrist of another Jewish student, spat on another Jewish kid, shouting at him, you Jew, you Jew. And I had to be evacuated from the campus.
Wow.
So it was very harsh. That's what's changed since, my biggest tour in America was in 2012. And I was also canceled in many places and I was heckled. But I'm used as an Israeli to being guilty unless proven innocent. This was different because I was guilty and I didn't deserve a trial. And I think that's the unique case after October 7th.
And what are you saying to those people who obviously have been brainwashed, about the situation?
So if you get a chance to speak with them, I will actually, at the end, I came back to Berkeley about a month later. I had to have 4 bodyguards, 50 security guards, and about 100 police officers for a crowd that was only 300 students. But when people do come and listen, it's easier to engage because, unfortunately, the amount of misinformation is tremendous. There are so many outlets today that just spread complete lies about Israel. Now, as someone who served and experienced what I've experienced, and then I go to America and I hear, oh, you're committing genocide, you're shooting children. Really? The war would have looked a lot different if that was the case. I would not have lost so many friends if that was the way that we were fighting, and the war would not have taken over 2 years.
Yeah, and I have to ask you, because you were living in America, in San Diego, you were doing coast-to-coast, speaking tours in campuses, in Jewish communities. Back in the days, the propaganda was being spread over the internet, over demonstrations in the campuses. These days, those students are getting everything from TikTok, Telegram, Twitter, AI fake videos from Gaza. And it's like wherever you go, it's so easy to spread lies.
Yes, it's very easy to spread lies, and with AI, it's definitely become increasingly more difficult. Our common friend, Arsen Ostrovsky, when he was in Australia, he was shot. I called his wife a few moments later.
In the massacre in
Australia,
Bondi Beach,
in Bondi Beach. It was amazing because the arguments are as such. The shooter was an ex-Israeli IDF soldier. It never happened. It happened because the Mossad agent wanted it to happen, and it was all fake AI. So, and it's like you can argue all of these accusations at the same time, even though there's contradictions. Like those who are saying the Holocaust never happened, and it's a shame Hitler didn't finish the job. So they don't care. And the amazing thing is, you would assume it's different groups spreading different lies. That I could understand. Some say it was fake. Some say it was an IDF soldier. The fact that it's the same entities, the same group of people who are sharing different lies, it means that they really know that they're not honest right now and they don't care. Because the end goal for them is to make sure that Israel is hated.
And also the media is doing an extremely good job in bashing Israel
100%,
day and night.
100%. The clearest example was when Islamic Jihad from Gaza fires a rocket into a hospital. All of a sudden, they know exactly how many casualties they have and that it was Israel the one that fired the rocket. I was like, well, hold on, that's not the case. It doesn't matter. When we have the horrible events in Iran that are currently at the moment, they're happening in this moment, they don't know how to confirm if it's happening or not happening. They don't know how to confirm the amount of deaths, the amount of casualties. So obviously we have a one-sided agenda when it comes to Israel and a quote-unquote parv journalism when it comes to other places in the world.
So in a way, you're saying to yourself, it's much, much harder to fight for Israel's truth these days with TikTok, with social media, with the international media being biased.
You're correct. But here's the problem. I don't think that Israel really fought for its PR. We can count on maybe one or two hands how many people are doing this. Noah Tishby, Yosef Haddad, Rudi Rochman, maybe 10 people. Charlie Kirk, bless his soul and memory, he wrote to Netanyahu a very, very good plan on what Israel should do for its PR. And I agree with everything that was written there, 7 steps that Israel should do. For instance, share information. You have Al Jazeera. You have a news outlet that basically bashes Israel 24/7. Israel doesn't really, we have a spokesperson for the IDF, and I'm not saying they're not doing a good job, but that's not something that people really consume throughout the day. We don't have an Israeli outlet that's supposed to tell Israel's story. So for many years, we left this arena that only one side really fought there. And
I think also in a way we took a direction of showing the world how amazing Israel, how we're a startup nation. We invented the USB stick and the cherry tomatoes. We didn't talk about the fact that we are the indigenous people, that we are the one who, that we never conquered anything from anyone.
100%. The Brand Israel campaign, it started in 2006 by Ido Aharoni, who was later the Consul General in New York. It makes sense if people are saying, in Israel you ride camels to school, okay, I want to talk about the flash drive. But when people are saying you're committing an ethnic cleansing, it doesn't help that they say, look, but I've invented the cherry tomato. So 100%, when the world is talking about justice and about how Israel is the epitome of colonialism, obviously we need to have a different message. I agree with you 100%. But I'm saying, even before that, we're not an actor, we're not relevant, because on culture, I'll share one story. I once spoke with a high-ranking bureaucrat in the MFA, the Ministry for Foreign Affairs. And I told them that people on college campuses, they're not receiving the information of what's happening in Israel. And he told me, what are you talking about? All the information is there on the MFA's website. And I told him, first of all, the information is not all on the website. Second of all, you want Johnny, who's a student, a Jewish student, who's trying to, get good grades, make friends, find his place in the world, and because he has Jewish parents, he's trying to be active, for the pro-Israel world, he's supposed to know that there is such a website called the MFA. so Israel really is not doing as much as it should. It's okay, I'm a free market guy. I don't think it's the government's job to solve all of our problems. But there's a lot more that can be done. And the fact that there are 10, maybe 20 Israelis or non-Israelis that they're active and you know all of their names, it means that we're really not fighting right now. We're not on the battlefield. The battlefield, that's the eighth arena that we have that we're fighting. And that's the arena of images, words, and thoughts.
Yeah, and in a way, you're also saying to yourself, we're such a tiny country. And when you're seeing the billions of dollars that Qatar is putting to inflame propaganda against Israel, what Al Jazeera is doing, can we actually fight this?
So I think we can fight this. And I think that we have to understand what are our threats and what are our opportunities. So one thing that I'll tell you that was strange for me. For many years, I used to tell the Israeli public that our problem right now is coming from the political left. In the past 2 years, I see that we have a problem also from the political right, or the woke right, if you want to call it, Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes, Candace Owens. We have an issue. However, we also have a lot of allies. Our allies are not only very religious Christians. Our allies are also people that have common sense, and they understand that while people try to present Israel as the embodiment of the West in all of its evil, some people understand that we are the West in all of its good parts. We are the ones that believe in democracy. We are the ones that actually treat our minorities better than most places in the world, and they understand that. And they know that we are on the good side of history, even though I had this statement, but we are on the good side of history, and they want to work with us. And that's why I mentioned Charlie Kirk with his letter to Prime Minister Netanyahu, because he said, you need to build coalition. In the other side, this concept of intersectionality, basically every negative event that happened in America, they try to label it as something that's relevant to Israel. ICE, relevant to Israel. Black Lives Matter, relevant to Israel. How? It doesn't matter, because you're saying the bad thing that is happening right now equals Israel. So in people's image, Israel is a negative character. And we can work on that, and we can change it. I actually think we can win this war. And what would be the outcome? What does it mean to win the war of public opinion? It means that you wouldn't have to interview me about this. It means that Israelis would not have to spend millions of dollars on saying, how can we better our PR?
Because maybe in a way it's a lost battle because it's, 90% anti-Semitism.
So there is definitely anti-Semitism in the anti-Zionist concept. However, I do think that the masses are not really anti-Semitic. I'll try to explain. Let's say, don't really look at the numbers as very accurate, but let's say you have 5 to 15% who are pro-Israel no matter what. And you have 5 to 15% who are going to be bashing Israel no matter what. We're going to save people in Haiti, they're going to say we're harvesting their organs. But you have like 70% in the middle who are apathetic. I'm going to say something that's complex, but there's no contradiction. On one hand, obviously Israel is getting more coverage than any other country with the amount of citizen or whatever. There's no doubt. We're getting a tremendous amount of coverage. On the other hand, most people in the world don't wake up, stretch, and say, I wonder what's happening in Israel today. Now, the problem is that the 5 to 15% that are anti-Israel are way more vocal. You hear them a lot more, so they're able to change the voices of the 70% in the middle. You obviously saw people coming to the protests and asking people which river or which sea, and they have no idea what they're talking about. So I don't think that everyone that's holding the Arab flag and cursing Israel, I'm not sure they're 100% understanding what they're saying, and they don't have all the information. And how come they don't have all the information? Because we're not really spreading the information the way that we can. And for the startup nation that we are, I think we can fight AI. I think we can fight different bots from Russia and Iran and China, whatever, they're trying to bash Israel. We can fight that. So I am optimistic. We just need to increase the amount of Israel advocates from 10 to, 10,000. And if we have 10,000 people who are going on college campuses, giving lectures like you and I have done in the past, you will be able to reach a lot more people. It needs to be a priority.
So when you're going to America in the midst of the war, talking about your army service, what do you share with the students?
So usually I share my story, but then I open it for Q&A, and then it goes to different directions. Unless it's a very hostile audience, and then I wouldn't have a chance to really share my story, and we're just starting with the accusations that they have against me. Usually it's very, very easy to contradict, because it's kind of funny, but the bigger the lie is, the easier it is to contradict it. As one example, to say that we're committing a genocide in Gaza, well, it's the worst genocide in the world because the population has actually grown. So we're not really doing such a good job. 200,000 missiles that Israel has dropped into Gaza, 70,000 casualties according to Hamas, that means that there was no intention of killing as many people as possible. So yeah, that's basically how you confront it. The benefit, what I have that pro-Israel Americans don't have, is the fact that they had boots on the ground. I'll give you one example, but I was actually with an Israeli who was very anti-Israel and not an American. There was an Israeli who said, in Gaza, soldiers just walk around and shoot children. And I told him, no, we don't. And he says, I know that you are. I was like, I'm pretty sure I didn't see you in Gaza with me. So he said, you don't have to be in Gaza to talk about Gaza. I said, fair enough, fair argument. However, you clearly have no idea how it is in Gaza. As an officer in Gaza, when I'm in Gaza, if I hear someone shooting, I need to understand the amount of transmission you'll hear on the radio. Are we under attack? Who is shooting? Why are they shooting? What's happening? No one goes by themselves without reporting to the officer where they are. They're going to have their ammunition restored. That's going to go all the way up to the division officer. Like, you don't know, you're imagining a scenario that doesn't exist. You have civilian people in Gaza, like it's Judea and Samaria, and 3 soldiers are walking around, here are kids, and shooting them. That is an impossible scenario. Mm-hmm. And when you're boots on the ground, you're like, that's just not how things work. So I think that's the advantage. Also, specifically, where me and my team were, when we saw, that was published, but in my opinion, not published enough, we saw in an UNRWA school a teddy bear with a sniper rifle inside. And my soldiers, my amazing soldiers, they had a GoPro camera. They made sure they're not touching anything before it's all on film. So I can give my first-hand testimony of what I saw. I'll give you one more example.
Wow.
The fact that every single house, and I'm sure every soldier will have the same experience that I've had, every single house I went to in Gaza, not a single exception, had explosive, anti-Israel material, Nazi propaganda, rockets, one of those. Every single house. I haven't been to all houses of Gaza. I've been to hundreds. Lital, I don't have one single exception. Not one single exception. Wow. And if we're talking about mosques or hospitals or schools, then that's tenfold the amount of ammunition and explosives. By the way, I've been to many hospitals in Gaza. I've never saw medical equipment. So I think that's the advantage. I was like, I was there. I can tell you from first-hand experience. And you can ask me, and you think I'm lying? Challenge me. Tell me what doesn't make sense in my story. I was there. I know what I saw, and I have footage to prove it.
Yeah. Also, in a way, I think, the students that you're talking to weren't alive during the disengagement, in 2005 from Gaza. And most of them just don't know the full story of the Gaza Strip or what happened there.
100%. But again, here I actually point finger at Israel or Israelis. I'll tell you why. If I'll ask a very smart group of Israelis, can they name, who's running Pakistan or Afghanistan or Indonesia? It doesn't matter how smart they are, I think they're going to say, I have no idea. But for some reason, we expect, Johnny from Arkansas to know the difference between 48 and 67 and the disengaged. Mm-hmm. They're not gonna. They don't have to. We're a tiny country in the Middle East. That's fair. What is interesting is that people who have no idea what's going on in the Middle East, which river, which sea, they are very passionate about it. That is
very passionate about Israel.
Yeah, that is the interesting part. So usually when you're passionate about something, you want to educate yourself about it. That, I think, is a tricky part. But if they want to educate themselves about a certain issue, then it's my obligation to give them as much information as possible. By the way, you do have more people doing it from our side on social media, and you usually see that people who are more known, who are more educated and know more history, usually they will tend to be more on the Israeli side. And those who are really just fed up because they don't want to read and they don't have energy for that and they only get their information from TikTok, they'll be more critical of Israel.
In a way, you're saying they're obsessed with Israel. They're obsessed with Israel also because the mainstream media is obsessed with Israel.
100%.
The BBC, the New York Times, every time you open the New York Times, there will be an item about Israel.
100%. I once had my own research about the BBC in 1 month. I think it was 2017, but it's the same every month, every year. And I wanted to check how many times Israel was mentioned. No comparison to any other country. And then I said, well, maybe it's because we have all these atrocities. But then I compared to the amount of casualties in different places, and there was no comparison because other places had a lot more. And then I noticed something also that was very interesting, that the terminology changes, meaning when they're talking about any other conflict in the world, they try to be very objective in how they present it. But when they're talking about Israel, they have 2 ways of writing the headlines. Number 1 would be an active one. Israeli police officer shot an Arab alleged terrorist activity.
A Palestinian was being shot by a police officer.
Yes, but when an Israeli is attacked, they would do it in a passive, meaning 3 Israelis were killed, suspect of terrorism. So they were killed, he killed.
Yeah.
The Israeli victims, it's a passive thing. Something happened to them.
No, the headline would also be a Palestinian was being shot by an Israeli police officer.
It will be an Israeli police officer
Only
shot.
when you scroll down the item, you will understand
there was a terrorist.
That he was a
100%.
terrorist.
By the way,
CNN writing terrorist in brackets.
Yeah, and if you remember the Sarona terror attack, for the first 3.5 or 4 hours, the headlines were 2 Haredi men committed a terror attack near an army base in Tel Aviv. Why? The Machamra family, a family of almost all of them are terrorists from Khalkhul near Hebron, came to the Sarona market, which is about 1.5 miles from an army base in Tel Aviv,
suits.
dressing up as Haredi people. So that wasn't the case.
They still have the item from CNN from that terror attack where they're writing terrorist in brackets as if you can, choose how you want to look. Look at it.
Yeah.
In a way, they're doing the same when you have attacks in Europe. During the Charlie Hebdo terror attack, the next day they were talking on Sky News whether they should have, not, maybe the Charlie Hebdo shouldn't have rubbed Muhammad in their faces, That was the debate on the same day of the attack.
I agree. So that's one thing. That's one branch of Israel hatred, which is mainstream media. We talked about social media. There's also the UN. I'll give you 2 headlines for the UN. Number 1 is going out of their mandate, meaning if you have a body in the UN that's supposed to deal with agriculture in Latin America, that's what they're supposed to do. But actually, they take the funds and they have conventions against the occupation, quote unquote. Like, that's not what you're supposed to do. But actually, Lital, that's the easier part. You also have parts, organs in the UN that their job is to be critical about Israel, which is unique because in the UN Charter, you're supposed to treat all nations equally. You're never supposed to exclude one, but you actually have several organs in the UN that's their job. There's a reporter in the UN that their job is to be critical about Israel, and they are not allowed to report any crimes that Hamas is doing.
Not only that, UNRWA, who was invented specifically
100%.
for the Palestinian refugees.
Or the Human Rights Council that always have, doesn't matter if there's an earthquake in Asia, they have to also talk about Israel. So there are many problems. That's another branch. We have many, many branches. You have in the academia. I'll share a story with you. I got a phone call from a Christian girl, not pro-Israel, not anti-Israel. She's a Christian girl in California. And she says, someone gave me your phone. I want to understand something. I'm very not interested in the Middle East. I study photography. And in my freshman year, in my first course, the course's name was The Ethnic Cleansing of Arabs in Israel Since 1948. And I wonder, why is that such a big deal? Can you tell me why I'm studying about that? So meaning you have people who are actually trying to push the Israeli or the anti-Israeli agenda to whatever it is that they teach. There was actually a conference in Columbia University in 2011 or 2012 where they said, okay, I'm a math professor. How can I, include the conflict in my classes? I'll say, if Israel kills so-and-so Arabs per week, how many they'll kill per week? It's crazy. It's madness. So that's another branch. You have all these branches together working to bash Israel. And, well, like you said, what are we saying? Hey, we invented the cherry tomatoes and the flash drive. Not that it's a bad thing to say we invented the flash drive. I'm very happy about it. I think of someone like Gal Gadot, who's probably increased the way people perceive Israel more than many pro-Israel organizations. However, that's good if you have people who are not really caring about the conflict itself. But when you have people that are saying, my main issue is ABC, it doesn't help to talk about our technology.
Yeah. 100%. I wish we had more time to talk, and we can talk about it for so much. This was fascinating. Bar-Yoshafat, I want to thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for listening. That's all for today. If you like our content, please comment and share with others. Until next time, God bless you. See you soon.